Hello, and thank you for watching my video on the salient points that I've gained about writing instruction thus far. First and foremost, writing is this equation where we combine background knowledge in academic language and reading to lead into our writing instruction. Background knowledge being what the students already know, and we must build that background knowledge so that all students are able to access the lesson. Academic knowledge, academic language being the vocabulary necessary to understand and be successful at this unit. And the reading being like the steak and potatoes of this all. So we approach the reading, do a close read, and this leads into our writing instruction. Before we really start writing, we need the students to warm up to writing. So what this means is essentially a lot of our students come in the classroom thinking that writing is dry, writing is something that they're forced to do, but it doesn't have to be that way. And Gallagher insists that the students write for authenticity because when they use their authentic voice, they actually enjoy writing. In Gallagher, he suggests some activities to start getting the students interested in writing, such as find the fib, what bugs me, explorations, and pass the portrait. The one I want to highlight now is pass the portrait because that's the one I'm most likely to use in my class. Pass the portrait, it requires some funny images that the teacher prepares, and the students start writing a story. And then after a few minutes go by, they have to pass up the story to the student sitting in front of them, and the student sitting in front of them will either continue the story very seamlessly, or maybe they'll take it another direction and make it frightening or funny. So it's kind of just like a casual, fun activity for the students to do so they can see that writing doesn't always have to be so serious. Next, the power of choice has been something very salient for me. Gallagher says that this is essential for student engagement because when we give our students a choice and prompts in what they are going to write about, then they're more engaged in the sense that they feel ownership over their writing. And they're not feeling like forced to write on whatever the teacher wants. They have a say. And another suggestion by Gallagher is this project called the Half and Half research paper. So half would be directed by the teacher and focuses on the material at hand, and then the other half of the research paper would be up to the students, so they can answer further questions that are on their minds, or they can take it a different route. Mentor text is a huge part of writing instruction. Gallagher says that we can mentor our own writing. We can use mentor text from students from the past using student examples as suggested by Anderson. But whenever we use mentor text, we have to teach the students what to look for. We don't want to just give them the mentor text and tell them to read it and that be it. So we want to tell them to look for what is making this piece work, what is maybe something weak about this piece. It's all about giving the students direction. Anderson has this pattern. He proposes read, analyze, emulate. Anytime we want to write something, We must give them a lot of readings as mentor texts that parallel what we are asking of them to write. So for example, if we want them to write a poem, we're going to show the students a lot of poetry. And we're going to read a lot of poetry, and then we're going to analyze a lot of that poetry and try to emulate it. We might give them, let's see, like a E. Cummings poem, and we analyze how he uses parentheses in his poetry. So the students might be required to emulate that after we read it, analyze it. Moving on, Gallagher gave us a little resource, and that is that there's samples, essay samples, and CCSS samples on College Board. That's something I'm definitely going to be checking out. And another huge thing that leads into mentor text is grammar. We want to use mentor text for our grammar as well. This helps the students to realize what good sentence structure looks like, how to use commas, tenses properly, you name it. We want to use mentor text to demonstrate proper grammar. Anderson shows us this method of separate, then stimulate. Separate meaning the teacher leads the class, shows the model, and then they hand it off to the students to be stimulated by this and to produce it on their own. All three of these scholars, Martinson, Anderson, and Gallagher, say that students must apply what they learn to their own writing. So we're not simply just looking at grammar and seeing what is wrong or right with the sentence, but we're going back to our own writing and revising our writing based off of what we have just learned. That kind of goes hand in hand with Anderson saying that we must teach in context. Another thing I would like to mention about context is we can look at standardized tests and pull directly from there as well to teach grammar. Martinson explains that our students have innate knowledge about grammar. Native speakers often have, well, let's put it this way. They understand how to speak English. They understand when they read something and it looks right, but they don't always know how to explain why something is right or why they say something this way rather than that way. So we really want to tap into the students' innate knowledge of grammar to show them it's not some beast that they cannot tackle. Grammar is something that they really already know a lot about. Another part of writing instruction is the evaluation, of course. We learned in class that we'd like to introduce the rubric and the prompt at the same time. Now, this should be early on in the game, usually the first day of instruction, so that the students know what's coming up and what to expect. Gallagher urges us to give feedback that's meaningful, timely, and that comes from both the teacher and their peers. When they hear feedback from their peers, that holds a lot of regard, and it's great for the students to be able to evaluate each other so that they can recognize what makes something a strong piece of writing and a weak piece of writing. And finally, writing is a process, not product. This I really love to learn. Murray highlights that the pre-writing constitutes 85% of the writing process. So this we really need to embrace. Burke says that we must give the students a chance to write and rewrite. Janet Imig she gave us this structure: pre-write, draft, revise, edit, evaluate, publish, and it became very prolific within the world of teaching writing. However, we don't have to follow this pattern. A typical writing instructional unit might look like this, but it's okay to go from pre-write straight to edit to drafting, and whatever gets us to that end product is really valuable, and it doesn't have to follow this pattern exactly. And I want to end on this quote that Jago or Jago puts in their piece of writing, and it's this quote that I'm definitely going to use with my students. Writing is like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole trip this way. Very valuable for the students to understand this, that, you're not going to be able to go from 0 to 100 with writing. With writing, you go from 0 to 60 to 10 to 5, but eventually you make it to that 100. All right, thank you for watching.